Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to do something a little bit different. As you can see, the lovely folks at Creative Assembly have given me access to a preview build of a Total War Saga Troy. I was able to play the first 40 turns of the Menelaus campaign, and in this video I'd like to go over what happened during those turns, what I learnt about a Total War Saga Troy, and just my general thoughts. This is a different type of format for me where it's not a let's play, but instead more of a recap video. But let's not waste any more time and jump right in. Menelaus, King of Sparta. Oh boy, the moment I realized who I was playing, the shock of knowing that my first preview of a Total War Saga Troy would be with a melee faction, something that I'm not very competent at when it comes to any of the historical titles. But that being said, with the power of horrible editing, I can get rid of some foolish mistakes. I spent a few minutes on the character selection screen in an effort to learn anything I might need to know about Menelaus and his mechanics. You can see them on screen right now, but I will describe them in brief. Firstly, the call to arms mechanic seems to work as an interesting form of global recruitment. And Spartan colonies allow you to colonize raised settlements without the use of an army and as long as it's within your line of sight. This is a great way to establish a foothold on soon-to-be enemy territory. Menelaus' armies are mostly focused around heavily armoured infantry and surprisingly the use of slingers too. Unfortunately you don't get access to the ranged hero, but then again this was expected. Menelaus has access to 3 unique faction units, which I will go over on the screen right now and you can pause as you wish. Below that is a bit of history regarding Menelaus and also some faction bonuses that he himself gets. His own personal army benefits from increased melee defense, and the region that he is in also benefits from increased influence. But let's not waste any more time, I want to jump in and I'm sure you guys want to see the game too.
Are we mere playthings of the gods? Or do we plead divine influence to justify our foolish choices?
He's taken her! He's taken my wife! You've risked the safety of Troy.
Troy is my home now.
You have my oath, brother. She will be returned to you.
Brother, I can fight!
Go. Seek shelter. There'll be plenty of fighting ahead.
Helen's flight was a grave wound to Achaean pride. King Menelaus will have his revenge. And his brother will have his war with Troy, just as the gods intended. Hear me, spear-famed Menelaus. Brazen Prince Paris of Troy has dared to steal your wife.
Paris of Troy must pay!
Gold-rich Mycenae, ruled by your brother Agamemnon, will support your cause.
Troy thinks to slight me, but they will pay the price.
As well as exacting vengeance upon Troy, other matters demand your attention. Open rebellion has devastated the region of Eetis, where a pretender is trying to take power for himself. South of Eetis, mighty Tiryns holds Kythera Island, blocking your access to the treasures of Crete, which are beyond imagination. Consolidate your power at home. Urge Helen's suitors to honor the oath of Tyndareus in your defense, and wage war on the perfidious Trojan princeling.
So here we are in a Total War Saga Troy, going in completely blind and with a playstyle that I never really use in any Total War game. The first thing I wanted to do was check out the world map and was really surprised to see how big this game actually is. There's a lot of chances for me to fail, but with that, let's go check out the first battle. For those not used to the Total War franchise, this more or less works as a tutorial battle. This is an early entry-level army, nothing too powerful, but it's there to make you get used to the mechanics. Let's see how I fare. I must admit, I like the look of the units, and Menelaus himself looks absolutely baller, but let's not waste any time and get into the fight. I'll be offering commentary every now and then if need be.
Menelaus! Battle awaits! Onward!
The battle maps seem absolutely huge, and it looks like I'm going to have to run at the enemy. As much as I'd like to have a staring contest, there's only a limited amount of time that I get on this build.
Your hero is under attack.
As you say.
Destroy them, Spartans!
Attack!
Axes!
Throwing my army straight in there, I was rather surprised with Menelaus. You see, I targeted an enemy hero and it looks like it initiated a duel, which means that the challenge system from Three Kingdoms is not implemented here. I'm actually quite glad about that. I never really understood how that worked.
Menelaus!
Your warriors are losing heart.
It shall be!
Pull out!
Defeat is looming! One of your units has no more ammunition. Thy Ares, your warriors are rallying.
Without remorse!
Victory is close enough to taste.
At your command!
As ordered!
The first victory seems simple enough. Obviously this is the first army that you'll ever fight, so it's nothing too difficult. I'm actually quite surprised I didn't have that many losses. We're back on the campaign map and I'm feeling rather confident. There's a ruined settlement in this province, so I wanted to colonize it using the new mechanic so I could travel through that area regaining extra troops and be better prepared for the enemies in the island next to me.
Menelaus of Sparta. That won't work. Prepare to march. On the march.
The new technology tree system seems rather interesting, and the fact that you can get a permanent supply of certain resources per turn is quite beneficial, especially for someone like me who doesn't know how to manage resources quite well. Ah, skill trees, something where I always lack in judgment. Don't worry, I'll be hovering over a few of them so you can check them out before I make my decision and you can pause if needed. It's not a total war game unless you're trying to cheese the diplomacy system at the start of every new campaign. I'm not going to bore you with the specifics of what I went through here, but let's just say I was trying to be as much of a parasite as possible in an effort to gain some resources from my neighbours and potential allies.
We should talk.
With that, the first turn is done. I'm feeling rather confident, so I'll see you guys at the beginning of turn 2. Moving Menelaus into the settlement I acquired without having to use an army, I managed to start recruiting troops earlier than expected and looked around the settlement to see if I could upgrade or build anything. I couldn't, and that's perfectly fine. The sooner I move into later turns, the sooner I can start doing some damage to my enemies. Originally I was going to recruit more units during turn 3, but I realized I'm playing as the King of Sparta. These are battle-hardened warriors and I should be as aggressive as possible. While I know that I won't be able to reach the island this turn, I'm pretty certain that I'll be in combat by turn 4. Turn 4 started off well. I knew that I could reach the settlement without a problem, and despite being slightly outnumbered, I figured I would give it a shot. Spartans aren't weaklings, and here's hoping that they don't disappoint me, or me disappoint them. While this was a settlement battle, unfortunately the enemy marched out to meet me, so sadly the settlement itself was not used as battle terrain. Don't worry, if we get any settlement battles during this playthrough, I will make sure to show it off. We've captured the settlement, united the province, and got some basic administration done in the area. After recruiting more troops, I was able to move on to turn 5 feeling fairly confident, which is rare for me.
Menelaus of Sparta. No question.
Turn 5 was rather simple once again, basic administration of the province and recruiting of more troops. Whilst I would like to get into battle as soon as possible, all the territories close to my north are currently allies in some way, shape or form. I have seen a potential enemy to my south, but as that would require some sea travel, I figured I should best recruit some units before I start making the voyage. Turn 6. My army is decently sized enough, so I figured that I could start travelling down south. There isn't a lot of playable territory around this area, so as far as I hoped, I could take control of this area without much resistance. Turn 7 was rather simple too. I managed to land on the potential enemy shore, and I was originally going to declare war straight from the bat, but then I realized that I make this mistake early on. I would not be able to attack the settlement, so it would be in my best interest to wait a turn and not give them any incentive to recruit any more units. Turn 8 has begun and it's time to wage some war. The NPC faction has not been given enough time to prepare, and while they do outnumber me ever so slightly, I did feel like I could win this.
Strike hard.
Obviously it's important to ignore balance of power here. The total war system for that has never been too on the nose. Once again, this was a settlement battle, but the enemy marched out to meet me. I guess since the AI saw that they had superior numbers, the AI probably thought I wouldn't be an issue, but with that we've managed to capture our foothold into this territory. But now I'm back to being Sparta's general administrator, recruiting some new troops, building some buildings, and giving Menelaus a new skill point. Turn 9 is here and I'm launching another attack. There is a settlement right next to me which seems to be largely undefended. This should be easy enough. Before I got into the fight, I realized I'm 9 turns in and haven't even checked out the Divine Will mechanic. It seems simple enough. With the cost of resources, you can pay tribute to a chosen god of the Greek pantheon. Paying tribute will also increase standing with them, which will give you certain bonuses depending on which god you wish to worship. At this point I figured I might as well curry some favor with Ares, the god of war. This campaign in the south might last a while, so having the favor of the god of war on my side might prove beneficial.
Seek your blessing, divine ones. Gather the priests.
I must admit the settlement maps look really good, though unfortunately once again the enemy marched out to meet me. I think they've just got it for me at this point. Obviously a small garrison was never going to be too much of a problem, but battles feel a bit longer and it does feel quite nice. It mostly looks like I'm going to run through the south unopposed, so at this point I figured I might as well recruit some more units for Menelaus and then get some basic settlement administration out of the way. We're a quarter of the allowed turns into the campaign and so far I'm still alive, so I'm calling this a win.
Good.
We're starting off rather strong in turn 10, as we can jump straight into a siege battle. Originally I was going to wait a turn and build up a battering ram, but honestly it seems that there's no point. It's a small garrison and nothing that I shouldn't be able to handle. I easily outnumber my enemy, and if sieges haven't changed much, the same old tactic of rushing the gate seems to work perfectly fine. I must admit, the siege maps look rather cool. Creative Assembly have already outlined the siege maps before, but it's just nice to be able to explore them. Unfortunately, this just makes me kinda disappointed in terms of Total War Warhammer. Siege rework soon, please? But other than that, it looks like it's going to be a basic rush the gate job, so I'm just going to cut around the footage and show anything of interest if it pops up. Ah yes, throwing every unit I have to the gates like a tactical genius. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. One eternity later, I'm regretting not bringing a battering ram.
The enemy gates have been destroyed.
And for some reason, the advisor seems to believe that this area belongs to me. No matter, time to swarm in as per usual. I don't even want to tell you how long I spent fighting on this damn wall trying to get control of it. It was actually quite frustrating. I don't know why, but it seems that the AI really wanted to keep this wall.
With me!
After a second eternity, the wall finally fell, and I managed to swarm the rest of the enemies. There wasn't really much resistance there. Maybe that wall was special to them, because as soon as I started swarming the rest of them, the remaining enemy forces broke and gave up. Things seem to be going way too well for me. Have I finally found a Total War game other than Total Warhammer that I'm actually decent at? Let's just keep going while things seem favourable. Once again, some basic settlement administration whilst we allow our forces to replenish. Turn 11 rolled in quite fast, and I decided not to lose momentum. I launched an attack straight into the next settlement, and then I stopped for a second. I don't know what happened to me mentally, but for some reason I thought that other random army belonged to my enemy. It took me some time and also initiating diplomacy to realize that this was not the case. But after that I carried on my path of conquest as per usual. I'm a bit of a petty guy, and seeing as that other faction is now raiding my now controlled settlement, I figured this would be my next enemy soon enough. Wrong place at the wrong time, my dude. Wrong place at the wrong time.
Should mutters of discontent reach your ears, discourage open rebellion with threats of force. On the other hand, a wise ruler knows that contented subjects mean a long and happy reign.
Oh look, public order issues. This was bound to happen eventually, and I also seem to have fallen out of favor with Ares. Maybe, just maybe, I should have been paying regular tribute. Oops. Well, never mind. Let's just go into the next turn and pretend like this never happened. Maybe a little bit of campaign panic is kicking in because I'm starting to avoid my problems. I'm just moving on to the next turn. It may seem like I'm skipping turns, but in reality I'm waiting for my forces to regenerate and for my coffers to finally fill up a little bit. Just bear in mind 1 second, as I'm recording at this instant, a real life storm has just hit, so any background noise that might be a bit weird, I do apologize. At this point I decided to move my forces closer to the border. You know, I'm gonna start making friends. Then I started recruiting some more units. I don't know exactly how powerful this faction next to me is, and I'd rather just take them out as quick as I can. Then a bit of settlement administration, and finally I spent way too much time trying to pick a second general. We're gonna skip through this. I think I spent around 5 to 10 minutes on this. Finally. Okay, past Nathan, I don't like you so much. I was going to declare war on the faction next door this turn, but unfortunately I realized I had a non-aggression pact with them. This was going to be a problem. I didn't want to lose my current rating, so I knew I'd have to wait a few turns at least, but nothing was really stopping me from, you know, going into his territory and raiding his fertile lands. Just moving a little bit closer seems like the best option at this point. From there I did some basic settlement administration and just carried on as usual. I must admit, at this point I almost lost my cool and started declaring war, but I knew the diplomatic repercussions would be big, so I had to keep my mouth shut. Instead, I went back to my role as an administrator, and for some reason not recruiting any units to my second army, cause yeah, super smart. The same could literally be said about the following turn. Honestly, I am getting rather restless. And once again, yeah, I was falling down on the power creep quite heavy. I must admit, at this point I feel like I'm playing a city simulator instead of Total War. Nothing against the game, more against my past self. Finally, however, I decided to man up and declare war. At this point I was wasting too much time just building up my settlements, and I wasn't really acting like a Spartan. The settlement was simple enough, the garrison was quite weak, so at this point I could start beginning to auto-resolve. My path of destruction continues in the next turn. I don't know why I was so worried about this potential enemy, they don't really seem like much of a threat.
This was a good day.
There seems to be no stopping the Spartan pain train, which seems to be really weird. As far as I'm aware, most if not all of my army is completely of low tier units. You know that feeling when you should have been building up your second army rather than just letting the general chill at a random settlement? No? Just me? Yep. So now with an enemy army finally approaching my territories, I decide now is the perfect time to start building up my second army instead of, you know, a few turns ago. I was hoping to wait a turn or two before attacking this walled settlement, but unfortunately at this point I have no other choice. Thankfully their garrison wasn't too powerful, so it was easy enough to deal with.
Welcome boost.
I took more losses than I would have liked to have, but at the end of the day, now most of the southern reaches belong to me. I had to focus around recruitment at this point and making sure that my army regenerated as quickly as possible, because I know I have some problems coming in from the oceans. So interestingly enough, the AI, true to form as always, decides to attack my walled settlement instead of, you know, a weaker settlement with a much weaker force. Who am I to judge? I did spend a bit more time than I'd like to admit trying to ponder how I could deal with this force, but eventually a solution was found. First, I knew I had to pay tribute to Ares. The god of war needed to smile upon my forces today. And then I had to move my second army as close to the enemy as possible without attracting their attention. After which, hope for the best in terms of recruitment and see what I could do. I got quite lucky over there. The AI didn't decide to turn around and attack me. At this point I could do a pincer movement and see how much damage I could do. At least my combined forces are on a level playing field against this enemy army. My only concern here was if I ended up losing, I could lose everything in the south. I'll be very honest, I don't know what happened during this fight. The enemy just routed very quickly. Minimal losses on both sides. It was just really strange. I'm not sure if this is a bug or not, but I did report it to the developers. Bizarrely enough, when I went to chase, the auto-resolve was extremely in my favour, and who am I to ignore such an advantageous event?
Very good.
With the enemy down south now gone, I wanted to bring Menelaus back to Sparta. I did notice a few other factions getting a lot stronger, and I needed to be ready just in case they decide to strike out against me.
We will settle this.
True to form, I played the idiot and accidentally issued an ultimatum. It's fine. Menelaus was on his way back anyway. For the next 2 turns, I simply sailed back, knowing full well the enemy were amassing an army and I needed to get back home. By the 3rd turn, Menelaus had finally returned and I had to prepare myself in other forms. A 3rd temporary army would be the only best option here. Sure, it wouldn't be strong by any means, but it could probably hold back the enemy for at least 1 turn. Thankfully, Menelaus could reach my capital city with no problem, and it seems that the AI is much more aggressive and unwilling to retreat, so an auto-resolve over here solved that issue.
This was a good day.
The problem was solved for now, but I know that I have a lot of enemies to my north and I had to prepare myself. I was going to need to recruit some forces very quickly and crush my enemy before they managed to launch another attack on me. Unfortunately, I could not campaign up north just yet, but I knew as long as Menelaus stood at the border it would be much safer, so I recruited some units for his army and waited for the perfect time to strike. The enemy tried to sneak through the sides, but I was ready to block their way.
Victory awaits! Prove your valor!
After somehow losing track of the enemy army, I decided to make my way into their territories. This would be the perfect opportunity for me to flat out destroy them. And once again I recruited a new army in my territory, just in case I should need one. Now was the time to strike, and despite the fact that we had very similar forces, auto-resolving has been very kind to me lately. But with this I have now crippled the enemy north of me, and they wouldn't pose much of a threat as I campaigned north.
We won!
Unfortunately, it would seem that I didn't pay attention to potential enemies attacking my south, and the threat appeared before I could even think of it. Thankfully, I did have a second army in the southern regions, however I knew I would suffer some losses before they would even arrive. And before I had reached my next turn, unfortunately I was being attacked at all fronts, not even knowing there was an army near my island. I didn't have many turns left in this campaign, but I wanted to see how far I could go, or better yet said, how much I could lose, so I started moving my forces and prepared myself for war.
For vengeance! Prove your valor! Strike hard! We won! Hard work pays off. Victory awaits! This...
Prove your worth. Beware, the enemy brings reinforcements to the battle. If you commit to the fray, you will be facing threats on multiple fronts.
After a series of wins and losses, we came to the end of our 40-turn campaign. Unfortunately, we are unable to play anymore. This is a build that only allowed for 40 turns, but to be honest, I had a bit of fun, and I was quite happy to finally get my hands on a bit of Troy. Now, what did I learn about Menelaus' campaign? Well, simply put, he's quite the powerhouse in duels. I really didn't have that many issues, especially when fighting against other enemy heroes. The buffs he conveys to his standalone army are quite good, and the heavy use of axe infantry is quite devastating to enemy lines if you know how to use them. I do not know how to use them. I feel like anyone who's actually used to melee-focused armies would have no problem with this faction. I just struggled. However, this was quite fun, and it does play quite well. Yes, there have been a few little bugs here and there, but as I stated at the beginning of the video, this is an early build, so a lot of these bugs are being looked at by the developers. I want to take the time now to thank you for watching this video, and obviously please do keep in mind that a lot of my fellow content creators are posting their own perspective of the Menelaus campaign, so please do check them out. Drops on August 13th. I'm pretty sure before then I'll have a lot more different content to be able to show you. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various different social media links such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord, where you can get in contact with the Great Book team. Also in the description section below is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Using our special link and also the special code, which is also in the description below, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to Bertsche and Gibraltar LUSC for subscribing to us at our Fame level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule and VSVasan for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you guys enough. The money earned from Patreon is going directly back into the channel, slowly upgrading little bits and bobs, just trying to get to a higher level of content for you guys. And a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. The support has been insane lately, and honestly, we can't be more than excited. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.